How to set aperture in DSLR camera. Aperture refers to the opening in the lens of a DSLR camera through which light enters the camera body. It's represented by a number called f-stop or f-number, which indicates the size of the aperture. A smaller f-stop number indicates a larger aperture, allowing more light to enter the camera. Conversely, a higher f-stop number represents a smaller aperture, which allows less light to enter the camera. In addition to controlling the amount of light entering the camera, the aperture also affects the depth of field of the resulting image. A wider aperture, small f-stop number, will result in a shallower depth of field, which means that the subject in focus will be sharp while the background will be blurred. A narrower aperture, high f-stop number, will increase the depth of field, making both the subject and the background appear sharp. Aperture is one of the three elements of the exposure triangle, along with shutter speed and ISO, that determines the exposure and creative effects in a photograph. To set the aperture on a DSLR camera, follow these steps. Turn on your camera and switch it to manual mode, M, or aperture priority mode, A or avenue. Look through the viewfinder or at the camera's LCD screen and locate the aperture value displayed. Use the camera's control wheel or dial to adjust the aperture value to the desired f-stop. You may need to press a button or rotate a switch to activate the aperture control. As you change the aperture value, you'll notice that the shutter speed changes automatically, in aperture priority mode, or that both shutter speed and ISO change, in manual mode, to maintain the correct exposure. Keep an eye on the exposure meter in your camera to ensure that your settings result in a proper exposure. Once you've set the aperture, you can take a test shot and review it to see if the depth of field is what you intended. If not, adjust the aperture and try again. Remember that the aperture value you choose will affect the amount of light that enters the camera and the depth of field of the resulting image. A wider aperture, small f-stop number, will result in a shallower depth of field, while a narrower aperture, high f-stop number, will increase the depth of field.